Right, right.
So I'll just go through, read our report first, and then as questions come up. Well, it's up to him. It's up to, totally up to Jeff. I mean, if you want.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't know, I'll take it first. Yeah, I'm happy to, because then I got to screen anyway. No? No, great. Nobody. Yeah. So that people aren't like. I didn't even know. Hi, Helen. Helen did. I'm just kidding. No, I
It is on. We'll begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. We have a couple of items that are up for a public hearing this afternoon. The procedure for the conditional use requests that are before council is that we will swear in those individuals that wish to testify before the committee, reference the conditional use request, or if anyone else would like to speak, which is, you're more than welcome to get sworn in as well. But the procedures are, we will, in terms of the conditional use requests, we will have a report from the planning department on the conditional use request, and then what we'll do is we will open it up for public comments in favor of that conditional use request, and then against. We'll open it up to the committee for questions or comments, and then to all of council for questions or comments. And then we'll repeat that process tonight at 7 o'clock, and everyone is welcome back at 7 o'clock for that procedure for the conditional use request. And then this evening, after that 7 o'clock public hearing, the committee will then make a recommendation to all of council, either to approve, to disapprove, or to table, refer the item for a future vote down the road. So that's the procedures. At this time, a representative from our law department will swear in those individuals that are here to testify before the committee this afternoon. So please stand if you wish to say something to council this afternoon. Mr. York?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, nothing but the truth? Say, I do. Thank you.
Here it is. Thank you, Mr. York, from our law department. The first item that's up for a public hearing is a conditional use in order to establish 2 single-family dwellings at 436 North Firestone Boulevard. Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Jacob Karam is requesting permission to establish the second single-family dwelling in one of the detached garages at the rear of the property. The petitioner purchased the vacant property in March of 2014. The large property contained a single-family dwelling and 2 detached garages with a shed placed in between the rear of the property. The structure at the southeast corner of the property contains a 2-car garage plus a 2-story apartment. The first floor of the apartment contains a kitchen, bath, and closet and is accessible from the parking area of the garage. The upper floor contains 2 rooms. Petitioner stated that when he bought the property, part of the garage was constructed as living space. Petitioner has renovated and updated the apartment space and is looking to rent the small apartment. The planning staff considers this property to be legal, non-conforming development with respect to the size and location of the structure. It's evident that the garage at the southeast corner of the property has been used as living space since its construction in 1944, but was never in compliance with code for 2-family use. The large lot currently exceeds the size requirements for a 2-family dwelling. The large lot currently exceeds the size requirements for a 2-family dwelling, and it's well maintained. Petitioner has made significant improvements to this property, utilizing one of the garages for a separate single-family. Small apartments should not be intrusive to neighboring properties. Both Planning Commission planning staff recommend approval subject to conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. Very good. Now we'll open up the public hearing. And is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of a conditional use to establish 2 single-family dwellings at 436 North Firestone? Can you please provide for the committee your name and address?
Yeah, my name is Jacob Karam. I'm the homeowner of this property. I guess nothing more to say than what he said other than answering questions if you guys want to add it. But yeah, I was about my neighbors that was used as that. Just run down when I took possession of it. So yeah, before anything, kind of did wonders and looking to get it rented out now.
Cool. Very good, sir. Thank you, Mr. Karam. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request, 436 North Firestone Boulevard? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone? Anyone wishing to speak against the conditional use request? Anyone against 436 North Firestone Boulevard? Anyone against? Okay, very good. Hearing none. Is there any questions from any of the committee members at this time? Any comment? Mr. Kamer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a comment. A few months ago, the process started, and I just want to thank the planning department for their work, and obviously let the committee know that Mr. Karam reached out to me at the beginning and started the communication, the dialogue, and I appreciate that. And I actually drove by and took a look at the property, and he's done a good job maintaining it and putting some money into the property because it was vacant for a little while or foreclosure. So, but no, I want to thank him for reaching out to me, and we've had a few phone conversations, and he attended one of my community meetings. So, just wanted to let the community or the committee know that I support this, and he's done a real good job as a neighbor so far. So, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kamer. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Okay, very good. Again, we'd like to invite you back this evening for the 7 o'clock public hearing. Next item up for public hearing is authorizing a conditional use to establish medical marijuana dispensary at 46 South Summit. Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Greenleaf Apothecaries LLC is proposed to utilize and renovate the first floor of this 3-story vacant brick office building as a medical marijuana retail dispensary. Greenleaf Apothecaries would sell and distribute approved forms of cannabis and cannabis-infused medical products to registered patients and patient caregivers participating in the Ohio Medical Marijuana Control Program. The building occupies roughly 40% of this lot. An existing parking lot for 11 spaces is sited at the north side of the building and is accessed from an existing curb cut at South Summit Street. The interior arrangement of the first floor would be renovated to allow the patients to be processed securely. Patients will be required to present a registry ID card and a state-issued photo ID card to the receptionist at the check-in desk. Security measures will include fingerprint scanners and/or a controlled access key to enter secure access areas, along with motion sensors, door contacts, cameras, and unique alarm zones with access credentials. Petitioners state that would create at least 17 local jobs, fair market wages and benefits will generate an estimated $13,500 of local income tax revenue a year. Signage will conform to state requirements. One goal of the Land Use and Development Guide Plan is to provide well-planned, designed, and located business areas at locations to service the needs of the population. Proposed medical marijuana dispensary site is within the Downtown Arts District and the Northside Community Entertainment District. This area is reserved for various housing options, offices, and a vibrant mix of entertainment, retail, educational, sporting, social, cultural, or arts establishments. As such, this proposed use would not be harmonious and appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general area as required under Section 153.474B. Additionally, as this proposed use does not comport with intended uses for the Downtown Arts District and Northside Community Entertainment District, the use could be disturbing or existing to future neighboring uses, does not meet with the requirements of 153.474C. The area surrounding the proposed use includes some of the city's primary civic and cultural attractions, including the Akron Art Museum, John S. Knight Convention Center, and the Akron-Summit County Main Library. These locations in the area's economic health depend on a family-friendly environment that will be negatively impacted by the presence of this dispensary, thus does not meet the requirements of Section 153.474E and 153.476E3B. Additionally, it includes additional planning standards to consider, including the location of the proposed medical marijuana dispensary in relation to medical or pharmaceutical facilities of a complementary nature. In the present context, there are no other pharmacies, medical facilities, or other proposed medical marijuana facilities within close proximity to the location. Planning staff believes the proposed use would better serve the population in an established retail or commercial area along the primary arterial. Both Planning Commission and planning staff recommend disapproval.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request at 46 Summit, South Summit? Please provide for the committee your name and address. Is that on? Is it on?
Hit your button there.
Tasting, 1,
There we
2.
go.
How's that
Yep.
taste? Again, I'm Tony Tropy at 1 South Main Street. We develop historic properties in and about downtown at Main and Market since 1996, and it's been our focus to take historic buildings that are underutilized, undervalued, plywood and graffiti, vacant, and turn them into new functioning places for knowledge workers. And it's been quite a joyful journey to take buildings that people haven't figured out what to do with and respond to the marketplace and respond to a variety of different uses to help them become revitalized and back in action. So when the opportunity presented itself for us to help facilitate a group that had been held in the highest regard at the state of Ohio, to help create an environment that was safe, discreet, and somewhat off the main drag. We were instrumental in helping locate this property at South Summit Street. It's just equidistant between the major hospitals, and we feel that it's an excellent location to bring to fruition something that is going to be increasingly more important as an alternative source for people seeking pain management and a variety of other medical applications. So I'm a strong proponent of this particular group, the way that they've proven themselves to be most fastidious to every detail that was requested by the state, checking all the boxes, and then actually being held up as a standard for which they want other licensees to pursue and follow. So a new standard's been set, and we feel that this is a strategic location, properly positioned in amongst the Arts District for emerging companies that will be instrumental in growth, development, economic gain, and really become a strong contributor, I believe, to the community. So I'd like to seek your support as well, council members, to vote favorably to accommodate this group that has selected this important location. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kate Nelson. I live at 2146 Jacoby Road in Copley, Ohio.
For those of you who don't know me, I serve as the Director of Community Engagement for Greenleaf. The write-up from the zoning office should serve as a high-level overview of how we expect this facility to operate, but I want to go into a little bit more detail of who and where we are. I'm proud to report that our facility at 46 South Summit is the highest scoring medical marijuana dispensary application out of 376 statewide. District-wide, this location also has the highest scores for every single one of 23 scorable sections. With that being said, I can safely say that this facility's team, floor plans, educational and training materials, as well as SOPs and community engagement plans are second to none. Being a Summit County resident, nothing could make me more proud than the fact that this facility in Akron gets to set the bar for how others should operate. This location was chosen with assistance from the Mayor's Economic Development Office as a location that is not only compliant with the correctly zoned areas for medical marijuana businesses, but is also compliant with the state-mandated 500-foot rule, and is also within the biomedical incentive zone, which was noted as a preference for these type of facilities. As mentioned, we'll occupy 3,600 ground floor square feet of 46 South Summit, which is owned by local developer Tony Tropy, which will include multiple consultation rooms for meetings with our pharmacists on staff, a community engagement room, as well as waiting and dispensing area where educational materials will be displayed. This building used to be the former Air Force recruiting office, but it's been vacant for the last 4 years, and we look forward to installing a new storefront, doing some new landscaping, as well as repaving the parking lot. As mentioned, all delivery of medical marijuana products does occur inside the facility, so that overhead door will allow the delivery vehicles to actually pull in, and no product will be transferred outside of the facility. We have also had a chance to introduce ourselves to our neighbors at the Akron Bar Association, Paul Parentonitis, who owns the State and Federal Communications Building, as well as Eileen Shapiro's office that has Summit Art Space on the corner, and as well as Akron Makerspace. I can't put a number on how many phone calls I have received that are from future patients who are looking for information as when this facility will be open. But I can say that I've received 3 so far today, and it's only 1:30. It's refreshing to get involved in an industry that not only is benefiting so many members of the community as patients and caregivers, but also as potential employees. We have not posted a single job posting, but I have a folder in my inbox with over 19 resumes for this location specifically, people who are looking for jobs in any one of the fields that we intend to hire, including security guards, our receptionists, IT support personnel, as well as pharmacy technicians. In terms of security, we will have 2 separate security and alarm systems that are monitored by 2 separate companies in the event that there's a system malfunction for one. All cameras and security equipment is going to run on backup battery packs as well as generators in the event of a power failure to ensure that equipment is running without interruption. But all in all, my absolute favorite thing to talk about is our community engagement space and initiatives. Not only is this facility going to operate as a medical marijuana dispensary that serves patients with any one of the 21 qualifying conditions, but we also have a generous community engagement space that will offer things like monthly wellness days, which our chief medical officer and staff will provide voluntary wellness assessments and compression stock fittings and diagnostic blood pressure readings, as well as things like blood drives and vaccine days. We have engaged the local food bank and we'll also have an on-site small food bank where we'll distribute healthy, non-perishable food items to our veterans and indigent patients. Specifically for the veterans and indigent patients, we'll also offer free monthly haircuts, hygiene products, as well as transportation shuttles so that they can access our facility if they don't have the ability to walk or take a bus there currently. We have funds budgeted every month for social welfare initiatives that includes things like small denomination gift cards, laundromat allowances, as well as toy campaigns and clothing drives. And our employees have a combined 480 hours of paid volunteer time every year, so that we won't only be doing things within these 4 walls, but we'll actually be actively out in the community spending time and volunteering in organizations that are so worthy. So when the community engagement space isn't being used for one of these initiatives, we'll hold focus groups for patients with qualifying conditions to discuss routes of administration and different methods that work best for them, and will continue to be a resource in not only the medical element, but also in pursuing additional research as developments are had in the medical marijuana industry. If there's any questions that you may have, you're welcome to ask, but that's everything that I think is really important to highlight as what will be occurring in this space other than just the delivery of medical marijuana products.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request at 46 South Summit Street?
My name's Elizabeth Bartz. I'm president of State and Federal Communications and would ask that all reference to my company be removed since no one came in to speak with me about this.
Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? 46 South Summit Street. Anyone wishing to speak against?
My name is Willie Smith. I live at 225 Chittenden Street. I've heard a lot of good things about economic growth, supposedly for jobs and so forth, but it hasn't been stamped or as they say, in writing yet, how many of these jobs will be presented for the Akron citizens. How many of us, the residents of Akron, will be employed at this dispensary and any other marijuana agricultural jobs that are available in this city?
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak against the conditional use request at 46 South Summit? Anyone against? Anyone? Okay, very good. We'll close the public hearing portion and open up to the committee. Is there any questions, Mr. Neal?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Miss, could you please explain who directed you to the site?
I'm sorry, this was something we worked closely with Brett Hendren in the 500-foot compliance map that was originally produced by the city of Akron. And then as we kind of continued to search for properties, it was noted that a preference for these dispensaries would be in the biomedical incentive zone, which is why we chose this location.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Very good. Hearing none, again, we'll invite you back. Did you have a comment?
Yeah.
Mr. Swirsky?
Just, I'm the ward councilman. I don't see any problem with the location. In fact, I think it's an advantage.
Mr. Swirsky, can you put the mic a little closer? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm the ward councilman for this area. I think it would be an advantage not only to the location, would be an advantage not only to the facility, but to the citizens who need access to important medical service. I think it would be good for us to bring more people in towards our downtown. I think it would also, if we're providing effective medicine to our citizens, if we're providing jobs and $13,000 in taxes, I think it's an asset, and I would ask my colleagues to support it.
Thank you. Mr. Swirsky, Mr. Kamer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just got two questions. Mr. Antonucci, did you say the Planning Commission and the Planning Department was against this?
That's
Was
correct.
the recommendation? And then also, Mr. Chairman, I know the one lady came up and spoke. It was really quick, and I didn't understand exactly what she said in regards to if she was for this, against this, something about removing your name. If I can get clarification on that. Of course.
The speaker before me mentioned the name of my company and that she had met,
Okay.
and that I have no recollection of that, and I'm the president of the company. I just didn't want my name associated with something I didn't know about. This isn't even the issue I came here for.
Okay.
But the name of my company is State and Federal Communications at 80 South Summit Street. Paul Parantonitis is my landlord.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
Well, that explains it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kamer. Further questions or comments? Samples?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to echo the sentiments of Mr. Swirsky, the ward council person. Mr. Swirsky, myself, and Councilwoman Amobian, we attended the Planning Commission meetings on this when it first came forward. And we were sort of kind of taken aback that they followed the recommendations of the mayor's planning department, and then it received a disapproval. So that sort of kind of concerned us a little bit, and we did ask quite a few questions during that time. I have met with Kate myself. Ms. Amobian has. Rich has met with them extensively. And in the footprint, Ward 5 has the closest residential district to where this proposed location would be, and I am very supportive of it, and I support my colleague in this, and I think that them scoring #1 out of every application in the state speaks volumes, and it is off the beaten path of downtown Akron. If you were to walk from this facility to the heart of downtown Akron, which I would assume to be Lot 3, we're talking about a 12-minute walk. So it's not like it's visible to the people who are going to be in the downtown area. So again, I am very supportive, and I support my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kilby?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too support this conditional use. I had a long conversation with Ms. Nelson on the telephone a while back, and I just thought she really had it together, and it looks like it's a really professionally run operation. I don't understand the objections of the planning department. Why? No one else seems like they want to use this building. Tony Tropy has done a lot of really good stuff downtown in the city of Akron. You know, and he's done it mostly with private funds. He hasn't had his hand out, asking for a lot of handouts from this city. So I think he should be allowed to let this go through. I think it's good for our downtown and good for our city.
Thank you. Any council members, any further? Mr. Hardy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to comment further off of what Mr. Antonucci wrote, but just to clarify, we, in the very beginning stages, if you go back, this started with cultivation, then processing, and now here we are with distribution, dispensaries, excuse me. So we have nothing against Greenleaf, fine company, everyone has said it. I've met with Katie many times, I've met with Tony many times. We as a planning staff look at everything individually. We make a recommendation, this council votes, all right? So it's really up to the council on this one. It's not, I don't want to create a controversy where there is none. But what I do want to clarify is that it's not entirely accurate that we told the company that this was an absolutely okay location to go for. When we met, all right, we gave all the companies all the same information, all right? But all the companies knew that they had to go through a conditional use process. Every company, whether it was cultivation, processing, or dispensing, knew that they had to come before this council, regardless of whether we were supportive or not supportive. So, you know, it's before you now. We're going through the process. Council's going to vote, and we're going to move on. But I just want to clarify that there was no shenanigans here. There's nothing controversial. It's just that we evaluate everything on a case-by-case basis. We made the recommendation that Mr. Antonucci read. Planning Commission made its recommendation, but ultimately the final decision is with council. But I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Further comments or questions? Short of that, we'll now move on to the next item that's up for a public hearing, and again, invite those back this evening, those individuals, for the second public hearing. 3 is a resolution approving the new application of Stephen Brown to place a property at 590 Diagonal Road in an agricultural district pursuant to ORC 92901.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, Stephen Brown is requesting this agricultural district designation for this property at 590 Diagonal Road. He's got roughly 2 acres of land devoted to growing crops for sale at farmers markets. 1 acre is for the house, and he's got another acre for the agricultural land. Agricultural designation will provide financial benefits in the form of property tax relief and encourages continued agricultural production of that property, and planning staff recommends approval.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use, or actually, sorry, approving the new application of Stephen Brown to place property at 590 Diagonal Road on the agricultural district? Please provide for the committee your name and address.
Good morning. I'm Stephen Brown, and I reside at 590 Diagonal Road. I'm asking the council to approve this so we may continue maintaining our hydroponics operations. Since we have started, and we finally got the greenhouse, and even though we have the properties at just over 2 acres, the greenhouse itself is only about 4,000 square feet. So we're not taking up that much. And one of the conditions that we agreed to when we put it in was that we would do our best efforts to reduce its visibility from the street. Right now, you can barely see it. In the winter, well, I don't have any, I have control over many things, ladies and gentlemen. I can't control the seasons. But for this is why I'm asking for the petition. Our revenues, since we've got the greenhouse up and operational starting in about May or so far, are up about 46%. We built this on the idea that originally running this, if you will, in our basement, with the demand exceeding the supply, and it appears as if it will continue to do so. And for that reason, I'm asking a favorable vote on this use. Thank you much. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We'll ask him at the appropriate time. Mr. Kilby, we'll ask him at the appropriate time. We still have to, we're in a public hearing right now. Excuse me, we're in a public hearing right now. After the public hearing, we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for everything you do, Mr. Brown. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request at 590 Diagonal Road? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against the conditional use request at 590 Diagonal Road? Anyone wishing to speak against? We will now close the public hearing and open it up to the committee for questions, should there be any. Okay, very good. Hearing none. Now, I understand Mr. Kilby may have a question.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry about the outburst, but I just want to know what he grows. I think it's vegetables, right?
I can't answer that. Mr. Brown can.
We can
Thank
certainly
you.
answer that. We grow a variety of lettuces, about 7 different varieties, about 7 or 8 different varieties of herbs, none of which are illegal. That was one of the questions that all the neighbors and everybody else came by. Sure, you're going to grow lettuce. Well, it's not. And I've invited council members. I even made a telephone call to Akron's finest in the narcotics office in the police department and said, please come down and take a look at this. I'm keenly aware you undoubtedly looked at our water usage and it went up like crazy. And by the way, speaking of the water, just to show you how efficient this is, I've got about 8,000 plants growing right now on a total of 650 gallons of water only. It is extremely efficient. And about once every 4 months, we take that, the nutrients that are in the reservoir and dump those into our own private garden. And I should tell you all right now, those plants look like they're on steroids. So it is extremely efficient. Besides, we do this 24/7, 365. So in the middle of winter, when it's pretty darn cold outside, it doesn't matter for us. You want to stop by, you're most welcome. 590 Diagonal Road, and we're in the book. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown's been here a couple times over the years, various reasons, and does a very good job. Further questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes. President Somerville.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to speak in favor of this ordinance. Mr. Brown runs an excellent operation, very well maintained, and has just definitely been an asset there in the community. So just want to thank him for helping to feed the community. So just hope my colleagues do support this on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, President Somerville. Further questions or comments? Okay, very good. Hearing none, we'll move on to 4, which is ordinance approving the Home Avenue redevelopment plan.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. The Home Avenue redevelopment area is located just south of the intersection of Talmadge Avenue and Home Avenue. The redevelopment area consists of one parcel occupying 3.72 acres of land. The sale of the property from the city to NSA Holdings LLC was approved by City Council on July 30th. The property owner was issued a conditional use to establish a medical marijuana cultivation and processing site at the 1055 Home Avenue location by Akron City Council in June 2017. The Home Avenue redevelopment plan contains a statement of objectives for the property, including reducing lighting influences through facilitating development.
Could you turn the microphone on, please?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Through facilitating development. The establishment of the redevelopment plan gives the city the ability to utilize tax increment financing in and around the plan area to assist in future development. The Department of Planning and Urban Development recommends approval of the Home Avenue redevelopment plan.
Thank you, sir. At this point, we'll ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the redevelopment plan. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor? Anyone in favor? Is there anyone here wishing to speak against the development plan for Home Avenue? Anyone wishing to speak against? Very good. Hearing none, we'll now open up to the committee. Any council committee members? Any questions? No. Any Mr. Kilby, council members.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is in my ward. Nobody has ever come to me, talked to me about this, never called me, never emailed me. I just question why, this has been put on the fast track by the administration. I went along with the selling the old wastewater treatment plant to them. That's okay. But I just don't understand why we have the planning department spent all their resources doing all this work, putting together a plan that, in my opinion, just seems to benefit one person or one corporation, whatever the case may be. So I hear he's going to get the opportunity to have tax incremental financing, but what do we get out of it? What do we get out of it?
Well, actually, do you want me to address that? The tax increment financing actually comes back to the city, so we can put that into improvements in the surrounding area in terms of infrastructure. Brad might be able to better explain exactly how that works.
Yeah, in this particular instance, the tax increment financing is not going to benefit the owner of the building. But since we're making it a redevelopment area, that tax increment financing is actually going into public improvements. Roadways, sidewalks, sewers, anything in the area can be paid for or reimbursed by that tax increment financing on this.
Okay, well, thank you for the information, Mr. Becker. Sounds a little better. The area definitely needs a little help, but like I said, maybe it's my fault that I haven't been following this going through the process, but I wasn't even aware they were doing one until I came down here and saw this plan right here. So I would like an opportunity to speak to the individual that's I would appreciate if the committee took at least a week's time.
Thank you, Mr. Kilby. Thank you for that. Just with all respect, the council did approve the sale back in June of 2017, and this was introduced, I think, some time ago.
Yes.
Anybody have that date? Okay, yeah, it was introduced some time ago, several weeks. Apparently nobody has.
About a month ago.
About a month ago. Okay, thank you. So it was introduced. So just so that we clearly are on that particular item there. And is there a rush on this thing at this
we could take
time?
a
Is
week's
okay?
time, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, regardless of all that discussion, we will be making a recommendation this evening and take into consideration everyone's points that they've made. Is there any other questions or comments in reference to this conditional use request on Home Avenue? Any other questions or comments? Very good. Hearing none, we'll now move on to the list of regular legislation at this time. And again, invite anyone here this evening or this afternoon to be back this evening for the conditional use request public hearings that are going to occur this evening. Thank you for being here. In terms of the agenda, I'm going to recommend time on 5 and I think 6. And item number 7 is the authorizing the mayor or his designee to file an application with assurances and certifications with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Continuum of Care application for the Stuart B. McKinney Funds for the Homeless. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this particular item? This was introduced last week. Ms. Tomic?
Good afternoon, committee chair, committee members. This legislation was introduced last week, and I'm available to answer any questions should you have any regarding the continuum of care application for 2018. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Is there any questions or comments from anyone? Last week I'd asked about the, you had provided for the committee a list of the areas of, I believe this is the various organizations and kind of a location of where they're located, and some of it was like scattered sites, Summit County, and the project description defined how many participants per location, and I'd asked, where approximately are these organizations housing these individuals in terms of the continuum of care?
So approximately 179 of those units are in a fixed location in Akron or Summit County. We do have about 239 vouchers that are scattered site, and that's what you were referring to. Of those 239 vouchers, 187 of them are located in the city of Akron, which is about 78%, and approximately 52 of those are located somewhere in Summit County. That could either be in Barberton, Cuyahoga Falls. We have some located in Norton, in the Norton area, and a couple of them in the Copley area, Copley-Farallon area.
Okay, very good, thank you. So in essence, 78% are housed in the city of Akron?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. With that, short of any other concerns or comments, I would respectfully request a favorable recommendation with suspension of the rules.
So moved, favorable recommendation.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, the ayes have it. We'll recommend approval this evening on that particular item, item number 7. And I will request time on 8, 9, 10. On 11, I'm going to request temporary time and ask that we have a vote this evening on item number 11, so that'll be temporary time. Is there a recommendation for temporary time? There's more information that we're to get.
Well,
Recommendations
is
for
there some
temporary time.
information that's ready to be presented this afternoon?
No, it's this evening. We should have it before 7 o'clock, more information. So that's why I'm recommending temporary time, assuming we get the information, so.
Okay.
Is there a recommendation for temporary time?
Recommendation for temporary time.
Is there a second? All those in favor of temporary time signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. Thank you. And then we'll just recommend time on the balance of the agenda. Now move on to the new list of legislation. The first item is approving the application of Stephen and Janice Brown to have agricultural property on Diagonal Road to be included in the agricultural district. We just had a public hearing on that item, so we'll refer that item. All those in favor of referring signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. Number 2 is approving the Home Avenue redevelopment plan, making necessary findings in connection with therewith. Again, temporary time. Is there, or not temporary, temporary time. Is there a second for temporary time? Anyone? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Number 3, authorizing conditional use to establish a medical marijuana dispensary at 737 East North Street. We just had the public hearing on that, have one this evening, so the recommendation is for temporary time. Is there a second for temporary time?
This one's actually a public hearing for next week. This
Oh,
is
for
the
next
North
week, I'm
Street
sorry, I
location.
must have confused it with another one. Okay, thank you. So therefore, the recommendation would be to refer this item, Mr. Antonucci? Okay, is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, thank you. Number 4, authorizing conditional use to construct a mixed-use residential and retail development at the northwest corner of the intersection of South Hawkins and Alden Avenue.
Refer for public hearing for October 1st.
Very good. All those in favor of referring signify by saying aye. Ayes have it. 5, authorizing conditional use to retain a solid fence within the setback of 983 Jean Avenue.
Refer for public hearing October 1st.
All those in favor of referring signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. 7 is approving the sale of a certain vacant city-owned property located on Kenmore Boulevard pursuant to the city's Lot for Little program in order to facilitate a productive reuse of the property and to reduce the cost to the city and the taxpayers in maintaining vacant lots.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. This would be standard sale. This would go to the abutting property owner. It's a small 30-foot lot on the boulevard. They like to acquire it for future development. It's at our standard pricing.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Questions or comments? Hearing none, is consent agenda okay on this item?
That would be fine.
Very good. I'd like to ask the committee, I must have misplaced item number 6, which is on the new list of legislation. Oh, all those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye, okay. The ayes have it. So we will recommend consent agenda on that particular item. I apologize, I must have misplaced item number 6 on the new list of legislation, which is approving the sale of city-owned land to Akron Zoological Park, determining said property is not needed for public use.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, the city would sell this property to the Akron Zoo. It's in the zoo's in the process of acquiring property along Edgewood Avenue in close proximity to the zoo's property. Sale price is $40,000, including the dwelling and land. The zoo has been gradually acquiring property and maintaining them as green space to help with the neighborhood viability. Furthermore, the zoo is undertaking a master plan in part to help determine the future of the vacant properties within this area. The sale of the property would allow the zoo to expand their presence within the neighborhood and would divest the city of an unneeded parcel. We recommend approval.
Thank you, sir. Questions or comments? Consent agenda okay?
Consent's fine.
Okay. Is there a recommendation for consent?
Recommendation for consent.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. Oh, with one abstention, Mr. Clerk? Mr. Neal abstained.
Which one? The zoolog?
Number 6, yes, sir.
Okay.
Under new legislation. Got it? Good. 7, we've addressed, that'll go on consent agenda. 7A, approving the site plan for Signet Jewelers Incorporated to install a parking lot at 375 Gent Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Signet Jewelers is constructing an additional parking area at the northeast corner of the intersection of Smith and Gent Roads. Site plan review with approval by City Council is necessary as a requirement of the UPD 35 zoning district. The parking lot will include 185 parking spaces, with a curb cut for ingress and egress from Smith Road. On the west side of the site, the proposed lot will connect to an existing parking area through a 24-foot wide driveway. The lot would be set back 40 feet from Smith Road with screening of trees between it and the street. Landscape islands that include light poles and a mix of trees and planting will be set throughout the parking lot. The traffic engineer has determined that the proposed curb cut along Smith Road has adequate sight lines for vehicles and would not have a negative impact on traffic circulation, but recommends a right turn in only for westbound traffic and a right turn out. The proposed lot is compatible with the surrounding site with special attention given to setbacks, landscaping, and screening between Smith Road and the residences to the east. Proposed landscaping along Smith Road generally matches the existing landscaping along Gent Road. Water runoff would be mitigated with water retention directly to the north of the proposed lot. Both Planning Commission and Planning staff recommend approval of the site plan.
Gotcha. Mr. Hardy, did you have comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I just want to add that the need for the parking lot is directly tied to Signet's expansion. Folks have probably heard, but a little over a year ago, they acquired Zales, which is based out of Dallas. This site is not only needed for those jobs as they relocate to Akron, which is a wonderful thing, but also there's a staffing up that occurs obviously seasonally because of the nature of their business with good paying part-time jobs. And so further, we knew and understood that there were going to be concerns and are concerns about traffic flow. So the developers were asked to conduct a traffic study on the curb cut on Smith Road. Be happy to make it available to council members, and it's been made available to residents. But the summary and recommendations are put as in summary. It was found that the new driveway on Smith Road associated with the Signet parking lot expansion project would meet or exceed all design criteria based on the proposed configuration and location. From an operational perspective, it will provide for adequate ingress and egress while not impeding the traffic flow along Smith Road. However, we've been working closely with Councilwoman Keith on this, and we are respectfully requesting time on this piece of legislation to allow us to converse more with the residents, as well as make sure that we are prepared from a planning perspective to have the correct, more comprehensive traffic study in the CIP plan for 2019. So we're okay with time.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. I apologize. If you could please provide for the committee. A few of the residents here have asked to speak before the committee, and so we will provide that courtesy. So if you please provide for the committee your name and address, we'd appreciate that, and we'd love to hear from you.
My name is Elizabeth Bartz. My husband and I own 2282 Bent Branch Court. We bought it in 2006, immediately put my septuagenarian parents in it, and now they are really hitting the high end of the octogenarian list. We're very concerned about safety, and I understand right in, right out of it, but the GPD report does say and does indicate that there might be an instance that somebody's going to try and turn left. We were there yesterday afternoon, albeit after the Browns lost, and I figured people were just raging mad, but it was there was high traffic on a Sunday afternoon, and we have worked hard to make sure that our area, and we're down on Willow Creek, the Willow Creek area, is safe because we've had issues when it first started. We've been asking about a traffic study. We're glad that one is being considered for 2019, but there's a lot that's going to happen between now and then. And the fact that, and I may be wrong, but I truly believe that Smith Road is the most residentially developed street in Akron. And for there not to be a traffic study recently, since we've had all these developments, it's hard for me to really comprehend. And if there is, we'd like to see that, and not one from GPD, but the official one from AMATS or the Ohio Department of Transportation. So this is all about safety, and we're concerned about what is going to happen, and we appreciate that GPD did a study group on that block, but there needs to be some research done on the whole Smith Road corridor. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jason Terry. I live at 838 Willow Creek, neighbors here. I just want to express the safety concerns as being something that I've experienced in May. I was in an accident coming out of Willow Creek heading towards Summit Mall, and you really basically need to be a NASCAR driver at this point in time, from any time from 4 o'clock till 7:30 to physically get out of the neighborhood and hang a left. And any more traffic being dumped onto that road is going to make it worse. And the issues are, as outside of our facility, at 4 o'clock, it's literally backed up. And as everybody's coming 35 or 40 miles an hour, they're either going to hit the person coming out of the thing or literally hit the people sitting still because they can't see coming over the hill at such a rate. So it almost cost me my life. And so I'd express my concerns that the traffic study or something else needs to be done because it's just out of control and it'll just continue to get worse and worse. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Schaffner. I reside at 520 Lake of the Woods. Been a resident there since 1997. As I've looked at this issue or assessed it over the last few weeks since the Planning Commission meeting, I think I've boiled it down to a very simple assessment. It's a matter of assessing a proponent's wants versus a proponent's true needs. And we heard a representative of the administration talk about the need for a new building. I don't question their need. They're going to have more employees here. They're bringing them to Akron. That's great. You have to provide parking for them. That's a definite need. The building, I have no objection to, or the parking lot, I have no objection to, all right, because they're going to need it. However, what I do object to is the curb cut on Smith Road. I have a very difficult time saying that that's a need for the proponent. I am aware of no legal requirement for them to have a curb cut there. I don't think the Signet business would be materially impaired in any manner if they do not have a curb cut there. They're not going to close stores. They're not going to go out of business, et cetera, et cetera. They already have not one, not two, not three, but 4 curb cuts. 4 curb cuts on Gent Road. One is right turn only egress. The next one is the main light or main artery to the campus, which has 1 ingress lane, 3 egress lanes, 1 turning right, 2 turning left. Beyond that, you have 2 other curb cuts, each providing for left or right-hand turns, in and out. So they have 4 curb cuts already. Do they really need a 5th? Or is that a luxury? Is that a want? I conclude it is a want. It's a convenience for their employees. I understand they try and get it, but they don't have to get it. It's a want. It's not a need. I appreciate the letter that GPD provided. It was dated September 7. Hopefully some of you have seen it. And it addressed sight lines, stopping distance, and so forth, and referenced ODOT material guidelines that indicated that their proposal would meet those, and that they were only looking at right turn in, right turn out. And I appreciate that. But just because those metrics are met does not mean that it's a safe situation, because the road is safer now without those curb cuts. And in my opinion, whenever you add a curb cut to a 35-mile-an-hour road, you're having traffic entering and leaving a steady flow of traffic. And that is the type of thing that will result in incidents of accidents, and hopefully not, but injury. Now, we can argue about the degree of degradation that poses upon the safety in that situation, having a curb cut. But the fact remains, the road is safer today than it will be after that curb cut. And in fact, the GPD letter, in essence, says that. If you have it handy, if you look at the first page, bottom, under the driveway operation assessment, I quote, "Right-in, right-out driveways are preferred over full movement driveways from a safety perspective due to the reduced number of conflict points. A traditional T intersection, which this is, would have 9 conflict points, whereas the proposed right-in, right-out driveway will only have 2. Less conflict points reduces." Notice the word eliminates. It's only the word reduces the potential for vehicle collisions and safety concerns that are typically associated with new curb cuts. So it's undeniable, their own letter says a curb cut degrades the safety of that stretch of road. So, is the degradation of safety resulting from the curb cut really worth it to satisfy a want or a convenience to the employees of the proponent? I don't think the thousands of people that travel on Smith Road every day are going to say that's worth it, because those thousands of people traveling Smith Road every day, they have their own need, and their need is for public safety. So for those of you who vote on this matter, you have to ask yourself, do you side with public safety as a priority and think of those thousands of people traveling Smith Road every day? Or do you acquiesce to a corporate citizen that has a want but not a need for a curb cut? That's your choice, and your vote will tell us how you land on that. Thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Denise Schaffner. I reside at 520 Lake of the Woods. I am a degreed industrial systems engineer. I feel that in my 20-plus years of living at Lake of the Woods, I've become an expert on Smith Road. It's my only way in and out of my community. And that's the point I really want to make right now, is that Lake of the Woods only ingress and egress is onto Smith Road. So if an accident occurs and a backup is afterwards, we can't get in or out of our neighborhood. And emergency vehicles could not reach anybody that was having a medical emergency in our allotment as well. So we are really at the mercy of the traffic on Smith Road. So, as my husband has said, I'm okay with the parking lot. I'm just not okay with the curb cut. And I would be supportive if it was given to council without the curb cut.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, council members and everybody. I appreciate your time and your service and everything that you all do. My name is Lee Hampton. I'm from Willow Creek. I live at 780 Willow Creek Drive. And I'm sorry, I'm old, so I'm going to have to look at my phone to pull up my talking points. But Smith Road Corridor as we like to call it, the people who travel Smith Road every single day, and all of us who live on Smith Road corridor, which runs basically from Gent Road all the way down to Riverview Road, despite whether it's Cuyahoga Falls, Northampton Township, Akron, Fairlawn, Bath. There's a lot of different communities involved there, but it's Smith Road corridor, and it's all the same people that drive up to Signet and use their parking lot. I have actually walked that parking lot, the proposed new parking lot that they are constructing right now. It's massive, and I have seen the cut onto Smith Road that is proposed that they want to do. I also know that the parking lot that is proposed, that's under construction right now, ties in with the existing parking lot that's there. Literally, you're not just saying it's these amount of cars or these amount of spaces that's going to use this curb cut. Anybody from over there that gets tied up or wants to use this exit can use it. So nobody can really establish a number until it is, activated. I'm hoping that the curb cut is not made. I believe there will be injuries. We have a report. There were 71 people injured in the last 5 years on Smith Road accidents. If we were sitting here, we probably have 50-some people here today. But if we had 71 people in this room today and the ceiling fell on us and we all were injured, that would be a huge story. It would be covered by Cleveland News all over the place. It would be a huge story. But somehow, in the last 5 years, 71 people, mothers, fathers, little babies, children, my friends, have been injured, but that's okay. Now, I've done some research on this, and I have been told, but I still need to get the document, that there was an attorney many decades ago by the name of Harlan Horton, supposedly, and this is all hearsay, that got an injunction in court to where Smith Road could not ever be turned into anything more than a 2-lane road. And I want to correct some of the things that I keep hearing over and over again. I've seen it written in letters, I've seen it in documents, and it's not correct information. It blows my mind, some of this information that's incorrect. Okay, the traffic study that's referred to in the report that says Smith Road has 14,000 people a day. I am aware of a traffic report back in 1991. And since that traffic report, if that's the one that they're referring to, Shady Hollow has been built with hundreds of people coming in and out. Bradford Point is being built with dozens and dozens of people coming out. We all know on Surik Road there in between Indian Hills condos and Brookwood condos, Ryan Homes is putting in 100 new homes, which will have probably 200 cars and all their services coming out. Willow Creek has been built. We have 133 homes in our development, and we're all trying to get in and out of there. So if we're referencing an outdated traffic study from the 90s, that's a problem. Because I know that Portage Trail Hill gets 23,000 cars a day, and we supposedly get 14,000. I drive both of those roads every day, and we have way more than Portage Trail Hill does. So I'm concerned about some of the facts that I'm seeing in some of these reports and some of these legal documents. They refer to a traffic study. I want to see the traffic study. I want to see the one that's done for this road, this current time period, since all the developments have been in. There isn't one. And I know and I appreciate that you guys are putting in the budget for us to have a new traffic study done. In the meantime, if we could ask Signet, and we love Signet, believe me, I've been in Signet parking lot in the morning early picking up babies from mothers that are working there. I'm glad there are jobs at Signet. We appreciate Signet. We don't want them not to have their parking lot. We don't want them not to build. We're not asking them anything except please don't make the curb cut because it will impact safety. And safety is first. Okay. And the Smith Road corridor.
Thank you.
And it's not just the little section by Signet, it's the whole Smith Road corridor that's impacted. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming down this afternoon. With that, I do know Council Representative Keith would like to make our Brad.
Yeah,
Well, as Mr. Hardy had requested, we would ask for time until next week on this resolution. You know, most of the information, as was pointed out, is given, basically the data is from the Ohio Department of Transportation, so it is up to date. It's the most recent information that they have on Smith Road. As we pointed out before, a traffic study long time ago, corridor study, was completed with recommendations. The recommendations did not move forward until really the Smith Road intersection was completed, which was probably about 8 or 9 years ago, actually. But we want to take some time, talk a little bit more to the residents, and review this information also with council.
Representative Keith?
First, I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing the residents to speak, which is sometimes out of the ordinary that you have this opportunity because it wasn't a public hearing. So thank you very much, and thank you, committee, for listening to their concerns. I think first and foremost, I want to reiterate, there is only one way into Lake of the Woods and one way out. That is really important that we understand that first. And if you haven't traveled Smith Road at different times of the day, you will not understand that when the sun is rising, what it looks like, or when the sun is setting, let alone the fog. So I am happy that James Hardy and I had a very productive conversation about this, and he would like to reach out along with Brad Beckert, that we come to some sort of a consensus that is workable for both, you know, because I certainly hear loud and clear from our residents, the residents in Lake of the Woods, that they do not want to impede the growth of Signet at all, but they believe that there is a workable possible solution that hasn't yet maybe come to the floor yet, and that's what they'd like. So thank you very much for this opportunity, committee.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Short of that, I'd like to ask for a recommendation to refer the item. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Guys have it. I understand that there's another piece that has just come in late. There's more to it. Obviously, this is just I think everybody, I asked that they hand it out to everyone. It'll be identified as 7B. It's simply a resolution. There'll be more information attached to it, but at least for the record, we'll take temporary time until everyone's had a chance to read it all over. And that is expressing support for continued efforts, funding, and actions on the part of the City of Akron to address and combat homelessness, acknowledging the dedication and efforts of the Akron Summit County Continuum of Care and other Akron-related charitable and beneficent organizations, including the Homeless Charity, in the fight against homelessness, encouraging continued discussions and collaboration between the City of Akron and the Homeless Charity and declaring an emergency. Again, I'm going to recommend temporary time until everybody has had an opportunity to review this in detail, and then this evening we can talk about it and make a recommendation.
Second.
There's a motion second for temporary time. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Against? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.
Good job.
Good.
It's 15 for everything. So a new or rehab, they're both 15. Our advice to residents has been, because it can be a little gray with the county on what types of improvements they'll raise your taxes for. Like, our advice is typically, like, if you're doing a roof or siding or windows, yeah, they won't raise your, it'll make your house more valuable, but they won't raise it. But if it's like an addition, if it's like a new kitchen, if you were taking an old house and kind of gutted it and started over, those are things we strongly encourage people to apply for it, because
I'd like to call the Public Service Committee to order. May I have a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting? Thank you. We had a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the minutes pass. We have nothing on our old, but we do have something coming before us on our new agenda. Where did I go? Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to apply for and enter into agreement, if awarded, with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the Akron-Fulton Airport Runway 7-25 Rehabilitation Project and declaring an emergency. Mr. Moore, will you be speaking on this?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, back in 2016, the FAA accepted our long-range plan for the airport, and a part of that plan was the rehabilitation of runway 25 and then the elimination of runway 19. This would allow us to apply for a grant to complete that work.
And a very timely process right now, since they are rebranding and have visions of, with Stark State coming, we have a lot of activity that is emphasizing this airport at this time.
And elimination of that smaller runway will open up a lot more property for development out there, so it's a good thing for the city.
Very good. Okay. Anyone from the committee have questions? Yes, Councilman Hope.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking at this, and I was wondering, what is the, and it talks about grind and resurface runway 725, and that's a concrete runway, correct?
Yeah, I believe they mill, you can help me with this, but I believe they mill off about 2.5 inches, 2 to 2.5, and then they asphalt over top.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering about that, and it is, I would imagine the cost comparison for that is much less than taking it up and putting down new and everything. Okay, yeah, because someday maybe we can talk about concrete streets at a later date.
We're investigating this process, and believe me, we've looked at Highgrove and those streets out in the outlet that are concrete that are in, poor condition, that we would like to try something new on those.
Oh, great, yeah, because that one whereas kind of, gave me a light bulb, yeah, all of a sudden for that tent. I was wondering, what, there was mention about the circle there. Did somebody say something about the circle? Okay,
No, sir.
Maybe it was an echo or something that I heard. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
You're so welcome. Anyone else on the committee have a question? Okay. Councilman Kilby.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chairman. It's not really about this particular project. I'd just like to ask Mr. Moore, read something in the paper about renaming the airport from Akron-Fulton Airport Runway. Is it, and I know some of the Fultons, and I don't know. Just give me, what are we going to rename the airport, or are we going to still call it Akron-Fulton Airport Runway?
Yeah, I'm not really involved in that process, but I can get you an answer.
Okay, thank you, John.
Anyone else? Okay. Mr. Moore, could you just, you had mentioned about the redevelopment, and I had the opportunity to be out there with the rebranding of what we're doing out there. Could you, are you able to give us a little information on that?
I can have a presentation for you if you'd like.
Okay, that would be
Yes.
great. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, seeing and hearing none, what is the pleasure?
Consent would be fine.
Consent. And Mr. Smith, did you have anything? I enjoy him
He's
so
next
much.
up. He's next committee.
He's next committee. Okay, well, that's nice to have him here then for the next committee. Okay. Is there a motion for the consent agenda? Okay, I've got a consent, and I have a second, I believe, correct? A second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this passes to be put on the consent agenda. Is there anything else to come before public service? Hearing and seeing none, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
go anywhere.
What? Give yourself a minute to get your committee together. Well, you gotta have a quorum.
This works.
Go ahead, if you're ready.
What I'll do is, I'm going to call a public safety meeting to order in 1 minute, please, if that's okay for anyone to clear the chambers and come on up and gather your seat.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move forward with the public safety meeting, please. All members are present, and we did have a meeting last week when we had 3 new pieces of legislation, so can we get approval of those minutes, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Today, we have 2 new pieces in front of us. Our first piece is authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for and accept, if awarded, grant funds from the Ohio Department of Public Safety to be used for the continuation and/or implementation of Impaired Driving Enforcement Program, or other known as IDEP, and/or Selective Traffic Enforcement Program, other known as STEP, and declare an emergency. We have Deputy Mayor of Public Safety with us today, Charlie Brown, and Sergeant Wood.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and the rest of the committee. We're looking at about $68,835 to conduct overtime traffic enforcement activities based upon the needs of the community with a focus on reducing fatalities. We're going to be looking at alcohol and drug impaired driving. We're going to be looking at occupant protection or seatbelt usage, and also speed enforcement, again, focusing on reducing the fatalities.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
No, thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that, and I've said it before, I support this program 100%. Hopefully, everything works out. I do got one question. Is this strictly, if awarded, is this strictly with the Akron Police Department, or do we team up with any other agencies?
It'll be Akron.
Just Akron, okay. Thanks. Any other questions? Councilwoman Keith.
Can you tell me if this will be residential or primary or highways?
It'll be focused on the data that we receive, so it may be places like Kelly Avenue where we've had a fatality, or Marion Road where we had some other fatalities. So it will be data-driven, focusing on reducing fatalities.
Okay. Throughout the city, but not necessarily on our expressways?
Well, if we can, with the data, when we get ready to accept the award and the data shows we have those problems on the expressways, it could be used there as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions? Councilwoman Sims, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will those locations be fluid, or are we just looking at data and point in time? So the data that you collect currently for this grant amount, or is that the locations fluid?
It'll be the data we've collected. The operational period, the grant period is from October 2018 to September of 2019.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I appreciate it. Any other questions? Committee members? No? Councilman Kilby, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How much money are we talking about in the grant?
68.8 and some change. 68,835.
How much money?
$68,835.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions? All right, what's your pleasure on this one? Oh, sorry, Mr. Neal, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to get an idea. So this, I may have missed something. This is for traffic enforcement, correct?
I think you asked the question, was it regarding traffic enforcement?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I saw something about traffic enforcement in here. Is it throughout residential city neighborhoods?
Again, it'll be based upon the data we receive. It will be our focus from the data to reduce fatalities.
Okay. That's one that I noticed is for the overtime pay.
Yes.
No regular.
No, we do have enforcement now, we're doing in the neighborhoods, part of the agreement we had last year with the public safety chair and a couple others. But this is overtime with a focus on reducing fatalities.
Okay. Reason why I asked is because I know I've gotten, like a lot of my colleagues, I see some members of council have been able to like really, if not them, their residents. You drive down some streets, they have a sign every other house about the speeding. And my question was to extend this, because a lot of them, you know, they ask for the little sign that shows us. Can we use, since it says overtime, can we use any of our reserve officers or anything to do any of this work to extend this money, or it all has to go to overtime pay?
No, it has to be well, for bargaining unit members. But just to follow up real quick, some of this is going to be for advertising and media exposure, so we can let folks know. You talked about, I think you're talking about the signs in the neighborhoods.
Right.
So it could be those type of campaign efforts as well.
Well,
Education.
Because the reason why I ask, people appreciate the signs, but people still speed. So they want to know, when are we going to be able to start ticketing people? And if we talk about taking officers with everything else that's going on, that's why I asked if we could use reserve officers or be creative to find some other ways to issue a ticket so we could extend this and make sure it gets into more neighborhoods.
Well, again, just to repeat it, we can't use reserve officers because there's a collective bargaining agreement, but Lieutenant DeCaire, that's in charge of our bureau, he does a very good job of making sure we space this out based upon the data that we have. He will continue to do that through this operation period.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because again, I know the residents appreciate it, but they're ready to start hitting people with fines, and I know that means more bodies. So, thank you.
No, thank you, Councilman. And this is basically for click it or ticket or dry sober or get pulled over campaign. But I will mention, I appreciate Russ Neal coming to the table finally with a couple of us colleagues that have been raising our concerns about radar enforcement. So there's another voice. So I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments? With that, what's your pleasure?
Suspension of the rules, please.
Okay. Can I get a motion to suspend the rules, please? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll suspend the rules. Thanks, Charlie. All right, our next piece and final piece, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter in agreements with various political subdivisions for the provision of contraband disposal services, approving the form thereof, and declaring an emergency. Charlie?
Sure. Sergeant was going to speak to this particular initiative.
Hey, good afternoon. This proposal is to allow us to dispose of other area jurisdictions' contraband, so their drugs and things like that. It allows us to collect a fee to recuperate our costs and dispose of them along with our materials with that. This was approached from another jurisdiction who found it cost prohibitive for them to do it on their own, and they asked if we would be willing to do that. We're just trying to follow up and gain that collaboration and partnership with them.
All right, thank you, Sergeant. Any questions? Committee members, please. Councilwoman Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I didn't see a cost amount on there. So how are we charging the other jurisdictions? And where is this at?
So all of our contraband is used at a local steel factory that smelts it, gets rid of it. And so what they ask, they do it for free. All they ask is it comes in 55-gallon drums. We buy these drums in bulk, so our cost goes down. For a smaller jurisdiction, say like Springfield, that same barrel costs $100 to $200 plus delivery. We're able to do that service for much lower cost and still be able to charge and recoup our costs. So the cost that we're looking at is the cost of the barrel plus our time going up there, gas and wear and tear on our vehicles that we would be able to pass on to them. That's why there's no strict dollar amount, because it depends on what we're buying at bulk at that time.
So it seems like the cost is minimal.
It's minimal, it's maybe $100 or so. I just don't know for sure, if you include the personnel time and that kind of thing to go into it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman, I appreciate it. Any other questions? Councilwoman Keith?
Thank you. Sergeant Woods, can you tell me what the upside of doing this would be? And if there, I don't see any downside, I see, to be honest with you, but since you have worked with this, maybe you could share with us.
Yeah, so the upside is that we continue this relationship with our other jurisdictions, is in this feeling of collaboration, that this is one Summit County, not just Akron, not just private places here and there, and being able to help out our other jurisdictions that are smaller. Us being the largest law enforcement agency in the county is an important role that we lead from the front, and allowing us to make those collaborations is important for us. And providing a service, also it'll offset some of our costs in disposing our own evidence, so it's all benefiting the city.
And there's no downside that you can share with us?
And no, we're already paying to do this, so.
I agree, but I just wanted to make sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions or comments? Committee members? Any other council members? All right, with that, Charlie, what's your pleasure, Sergeant?
Consent is fine.
Consent? Can I get a motion for consent? I got a motion and a second from Mr. Hoke. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All right, anybody opposed? All right, with that, we're adjourned. Thank you, too. Appreciate it.
Public utilities will begin in 1 minute. Bob, do we have anybody to swear people in?
Right back there. We need a lawyer to swear some people in.
He just said in the back of his chest.
Yeah, I know that guy. This is, well, I remember not. Shit, I can't go.
Somebody else gave me some. He was a good guy, really good guy. Yeah, it was good for me. Well, but the hand as it is just like they do.
Continue to do it. Isn't Mike Freeman here, Bob? I thought I saw Mike Freeman.
Let me go look.
Okay. Oh, there he goes.
He heard it on the microphone.
So we will begin our public utilities. All members are present. Today we have one of two public hearings as it relates to natural gas aggregation program plan. If there's anyone here that would be speaking on behalf of the natural gas aggregation program plan for or against, could you please stand to be sworn in?
If you could, please raise your right hand and then repeat after me. I swear or affirm that the testimony I'm going to give is the truth and nothing but the truth.
I swear or affirm, and the testimony we're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Today we have an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to adopt the natural gas aggregation program plan of operation and governance and enter into agreements required for services related to the natural gas aggregation program and declaring an emergency.
Yes, Madam Chair, this ordinance would allow us to enter into this program. I believe there are people from Buckeye Energy here that would like to speak on the matter. Mr. Smith, I know, gave you a presentation about a year ago on this program. If there are any detailed questions for us, Mr. Smith can certainly answer them.
Okay. So we are open for questions. If anyone on the committee has any questions of Buckeye Energy or Mr. Moore. Mr. Swirsky.
What's the advantages of going with your program versus some of the other ones that are available?
Okay, great question. Currently the city has an electric aggregation program that is by itself and saves a significant amount of money for the residents. So this program would be very similar. You'd be able to shop with any available supplier. So we'll send out a request for proposal to all the suppliers, so you have a much wider range of selection to pick from. And this program has, the way we do it has benefited residents in the past. So we like to do that same method. 88% of the residents have gas for their heating. So not only is an electric program important, but gas as well. Most cities, that's like 75%. We've been in townships where it's like 50%. So it not only it can save money, but it affects 88% of the residents.
What other cities have signed up with you guys?
So we have, does everybody have, I don't know if they have a copy of my presentation. Could I hand that out? Because I have a copy of that.
That'd be great. Is it on the, yeah.
What's in the bag?
So while he hands that out, we have worked with many Summit County communities, such as Summit County, Talmadge, Fairlawn, Hudson.
They're all signed up with you?
Yes.
Okay.
If you remember, Mr. Swirsky, this went to the ballot, and the voters decided they did want to have this program, or a program like it.
How many years ago was that?
That was almost 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
And then last year, we had presentations from Buckeye Energy and from NOPEC that came in, and council
yes.
asked us to proceed with Buckeye on the agreement. So that's, the ordinance before you is to start the agreement, and then the second ordinance will be to enter into an agreement with Buckeye.
Okay, so we weighed the pros and cons.
You did. That presentation was made last year to the leadership.
Okay. To the leadership?
I'm not sure who all was in attendance.
To council as a whole?
I believe so, yes.
So
you remember, Bob? Okay.
Commissioner Kilby?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So, yeah, Buckeye, I see your storefront down there by the Greystone. How long have they been around?
Yeah, so we've been at that location 2.5 years, but we've been doing this for 18 years.
Okay.
Buckeye Energy was the first company to do natural gas aggregation. We're also the first ones to do electric aggregation as well.
So presently, we don't have aggregation for gas. We got it for electric in the city. So, in a nutshell, correct me if I'm wrong, that means everybody's automatically going to be in this unless they opt out? Is that how that works?
Yeah, we'll get to the eligibility. So on page 3, we have the eligibility. So it's those who are not under contract, you're just with the Dominion default rate, the market variable rate, or the standard choice offer. Then you can be included. But if you're under contract, you're not included. If you're in the percentage of income payment plan, you're not included. So it's really just the ones who are available.
Okay.
And,
so Dominion's still going to be the supplier. They're the ones that have the pipelines and everything, but you guys sell the natural gas, is that what it is?
So we would be sending out a request for proposal, and the city would be contracting with that winning supplier, and they would provide the gas to the Dominion system.
Okay,
yes.
Buckeye. All right, how many other companies supply gas around here? Approximately, it's probably a lot, huh?
Yeah, there's about 20, but to do this kind of residential aggregation, there's probably 5 that are, active and worth going with.
So how many companies, I didn't ask about how many are trying to get these contracts to be the aggregator, how many supply gas that you could pick from if you wanted to, do you know?
Yeah, so there's, to do the aggregation, about 5 other suppliers that we can go with. Dominion has a deregulated arm.
Okay.
That's one of them.
So I think the electric company has a lot more people want to sell the power, but so how do your rates compare to the other ones? The rates that you're going to charge the customer?
Right. So we have Currently, we have some fixed prices. Just 2 weeks ago, we locked in Talmadge at $309 for 3 years. That's well below anything you can get
How
on...
long are they locked in for?
That's 3 years, and much lower than anything you can get, like on the Apples to Apples chart. There's offers there. They're in the $4 range. I also have on page 5 the range of rates that are in Dominion's market variable plan.
Okay.
So if you don't select a supplier, you're randomly assigned one of these suppliers, and there's a wide range of rates. I'm seeing anything from $2.88 to $9.25.
Okay.
So those are the rates. Residents who haven't selected, that's what they're paying.
Okay, so right now, last few years, natural gas has been relatively cheap because all the drilling around here, I guess. So where does Buckeye get their natural gas, you know?
So we don't take title to the energy.
Yeah.
We are administering the program, and that's the winning supplier will supply
Does
that.
that, the name Buckeye, does that imply the gas comes from the state of Ohio, or no?
No, Buckeye means we are certified by Ohio, and we're in Ohio, and that's where the name came from. We really don't operate outside of Ohio.
Okay, so you said Talmadge locked in at 308?
309, yes.
309, okay, so you think we could get the same deal, do you think?
Maybe slightly better because you're not locking in this expense. December and January are very expensive, and I think this program might start in March, so it might be a little cheaper even.
Okay, hey, thank you very much.
All right.
Have any more questions? Councilman Freeman?
Just, and I couldn't tell you who all was on the committee, but I know we did 2 years back, there was a committee formed. We looked at different groups, decision was made, and so that's why Buckeye's before us today. Just took us a little while to turn it into legislation.
Okay, just to clarify, there was a committee, but there was not a presentation to council as a whole.
And I don't, thank you, but I don't recall that. I know that we, as the committee, we did have, presentations and different things, but I think...
That is correct. It was around December we did it, and we had 2 presentations from 2 major players.
No, it was a special committee, I believe, that was assigned to this. We met a few times.
Are there any other questions from any committee members or council members? This is scheduled for another public hearing on September 24th, and just due to all the information that we've just received and just trying to wrap our thoughts around it, I request that we take time. So if I could get a motion for time.
Motion for time?
All in favor? Aye. All right, ayes have it. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
We have one more. Ordinance authorizing mayor has designated into an agreement with, Buckeye Energy Brokers for aggregation consulting services and any other required services related to the natural gas aggregation program for the city of Akron, and ratifying such services performed and declaring an emergency.
I would recommend a week's time.
Yeah,
These
time.
two go together.
Yeah, can I get a motion for time?
Motion for time.
All in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it. If there's nothing else coming before us, we are adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Health and Social Services will meet in 1 minute.
I have 2. I do remember there was a committee appointed, but we never heard back from them. And so Mike maybe could fill us in, or somebody, because I met with somebody from OPID.
doing all right? Good. What's that?
Now it made no sense. That don't even make no sense. I don't even understand how they even thought they was gonna get that off. We gotta get that about how we doing stuff. What is this? It's dead. It just went dead on me.
Health and Human Services.
I mean, but what is it? Is it that thing for sewage?
No. It's,
I'd like to call to order the Health and Social Services Committee. All are present except for Councilwoman Amobian. Have a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
so moved. Second.
Have a motion to second. All in favor? Thank you. We have one item that has come before us today. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor as designee on behalf of the Akron Municipal Court to enter into a contract or contracts with the County of Summit Alcohol, Drug, Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board in order to provide funding for certain specialized dockets, programs that manage addicted offenders in the community and declaring an emergency. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Tony Ingram. I'm the Chief Probation Officer with the Akron Municipal Court in the Probation Department, and I can answer any questions that any of the council members have at this time.
All right. Any questions from the committee to begin with? Questions or comments? Any other council member that may be in the chamber? Any questions or comments? Mr. Neal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. I just pulled this up on my iPad. Just wanted to make sure I understood what the nature of the request. I see Drug and Alcohol Addiction Mental Health Services Board. Is this for drug court?
It's related to all 5 of our specialized dockets. Originally, when the subsidy was established, a check was sent to us through the court, and then we passed it along to the city. The Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services changed their process. They're now funneling those funds through the local county alcohol, drug, and mental health boards. And so there was no established relationship up to this point.
Okay. Okay, so I see Family Intervention, Mental Health Corp, Recovery Corp, Valor Court? What's that?
That's our Veterans Court.
Veterans, okay. Okay, got a better understanding now. Thank you, thank you.
Now, has there been one court added onto this since last year? Or is this the same as we had last year?
I believe it's the same as we had last year.
Okay.
The 5 have been funded and certified for at least the last 3 years.
Okay, and was this the amount that was granted last year as well?
It was.
Okay, very good. All right. Any other questions or comments? Would consent be okay? Get that on our consent agenda, get it passed next week?
That would be fine.
Okay.
Motion for consent.
Have a motion for consent and a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we will place that on the consent agenda for next week. Thank you. Thank you for what you do.